One of the biggest things I've learned in my time away from home is the power of perspective and how it can change our lives. It's astonishing to me how much we can learn from just changing the way we look at things. A perfect example of this battle is the one my dad had to fight to get to where he is today. On the outside, my father may look like any normal man. He has a nice family, has a good set of friends, and is successful in doing what he loves. When most people look at my father, they'd be surprised to know that he is the president and CEO of a Fortune 500 company. He doesn't fit the mold of a typical CEO, which is what makes his story so special. My father, Jim Kamsickas, grew up in a small town of Saginaw, Michigan. Saginaw is like any other mid-major city in America, a decent-sized downtown, crime in the inner city, and a few small suburbs filled with people chasing their dreams. My dad grew up the youngest of 7 in a small house just outside the city. For my dad, life was very normal growing up, and he'd even tell you today that he never thought he'd leave that town because he loved the small town environment and the family-oriented feel that the area had. He was a family man through and through. He loved spending time with his brothers and enjoyed picking on his sisters. In high school, he was a star athlete on the football and baseball field, leading him to be a preferred walk-on at a small Division II school, Ferris State University in Big Rapids, Michigan. When he arrived on the Ferris State campus to play football, he thought he was the king. A small-town kid arriving at a mid-major university to play football. He'd be very successful on the field that fall and had a lot of fun with it, but unfortunately, that success would lead to his head. He failed to realize that he was a little fish in a very big pond, and that college wasn't always about playing sports and hanging out with friends. My father, a Fortune 500 CEO, was kicked out of his dorm at Ferris State University the spring of his freshman year, and now he was in a major pickle. My father's parents had to support 7 children, one of which with special needs. His parents were counting on my father to get himself through school, and now that he got kicked out of the dorm, my father's education was in jeopardy. My dad would take out a small loan to pay for his first semester of school at Central Michigan University in a small town in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. He knew that it was all up to him to pay for school, and that life wasn't all about football and fun. This is when his perspective on life completely changed. My dad would work late night hours at the campus 7-Eleven gas station to pay his way through school. In fact, this was the time when workers at 7-Eleven would actually pour your Slurpees behind the counter for you. He always said the most embarrassing part of the job would be pouring Slurpees for his friends, but he had no other choice. When my dad stepped on the campus of Central Michigan, he had to make the decision to not only get through college, but to turn his life around. He knew that his perspective on life and the people around him needed to change. Sometimes it takes failure to take accountability for your life, and that's the hard lesson that my dad learned in his college years. He put his head to the ground and worked hard, earning a BBA from Central and eventually an MBA from Michigan State University. After my father graduated college, he was at another starting point, and it would take some discipline to succeed. Like any other person trying to achieve the American dream, my dad started on the bottom of the ladder and worked his way up. He knew where he was, a young college graduate, and he knew he needed to work hard to get successful one day. My father would work in climbing that ladder for 26 years between 2 different companies before accepting the job as president and CEO of Dana Incorporated. Those 26 years weren't easy, and accepting the job as the CEO of a struggling company wouldn't be any easier. After filing for bankruptcy in 2006, Dana was in heavy turmoil. The company was at its roughest point and needed a complete culture change. It would take a hard-working, determined man with the right perspective on life to complete that task. Since joining Dana in 2015, my father's taken the company revenue to over $8.1 billion, which is a 47% increase since he joined the company. My dad is a firm believer in the phrase, "A crisis is a terrible thing to waste," and he holds that true to everything he does. Based on his past, he realized that the crisis of being kicked out of the dorms and finding his way through school is what drove him to change his perspective and allowed him to be successful. He has implemented the idea at Dana that a company will succeed through people finding a better way. He uses this idea in his weekly leadership meetings and at company events to grow the culture and success of the business. A lot lot of people ask me why my dad isn't active on social media, or why he doesn't respond to negative reviews of him. And that's because to him, it doesn't matter. My dad has been criticized on national television, answered many crazy phone calls, and has read some pretty bad emails. But he knows deep down inside that if he is a hard worker and treats people with respect, success will come. The people are what make a business so successful. Running a major corporation can't be done by a single person or by a small leadership team. It takes a collaborative effort, which is why my father travels internationally 30 weeks out of the year, so he can make those valuable connections with his team. My father has always been about helping others succeed. In fact, he has served on President Trump's American Manufacturing Council, is a member of United Way and Rotary of Greater Toledo, Ohio, and is always seen walking through company headquarters, making a personal connection with as many employees as possible. It is very difficult to run a company in the public eye, and with only 4 years in this position, he has become a role model to young leaders in the business world. My father is not a normal CEO. Sure, he believes in numbers, but he knows that the business can only be as successful as the culture of the company. He treats himself and every employee as equals and builds a team environment throughout his 36,000 employees in 33 different countries. He learned that to be a leader, you need to bring up the people around you, and you can't do everything yourself. This, a valuable lesson that he learned at his first college. You can't take on life's challenges alone. Through everything my dad has done, he always remembers where he came from. He always carves out time to attend family events, watch me play golf, or attend many of my sister's dance competitions. He understands that if he looks through life through a humble lens and understands that everyone is equal, no matter what, that he will make people around him happy and ultimately be a successful person. Success is not defined by the amount of money you make or by how many axles you sell, but by how you impact the people around you. My father is my hero because he epitomizes what it means to work hard in order to succeed. On the outside, my dad doesn't look like one of the most influential men in the auto business, but if you take time to get to know him, you'll truly understand why he is so successful. Thank you, Dad, for being my role model and showing me that success stems from what is on the inside, by how willing you are to work hard and how you treat the people around you. Your perspective on challenging situations will determine the outcome.